Introduction. There are moments in life that arrive without warning. A quiet moment late at night, the loss of someone we love, a sudden realization while staring out a window, a question that appears from nowhere and refuses to leave. In those moments, something unusual happens. The noise of everyday life begins to fade. The endless pursuit of achievement becomes less convincing. The promises of success lose some of their shine, and a deeper question starts to emerge from somewhere within. What is all of this really about? Why do so many people spend their lives chasing fulfillment, only to discover that fulfillment remains just beyond reach? Why do we fear death so deeply, yet understand so little about life? Why do we accumulate knowledge but often feel disconnected from wisdom? And perhaps most importantly, who are we beneath all the labels, roles, achievements, fears, and stories we carry? This audiobook is an exploration of those questions. But it is not a collection of answers, at least not in the ordinary sense, because the greatest truths cannot be handed to us. They must be discovered, experienced, lived. The journey you are about to begin is not a journey through information. It is a journey through awareness, a journey into the hidden spaces most people rarely explore, the spaces beneath ambition, beneath identity, beneath fear, beneath the endless noise of the thinking mind. For centuries, human beings have searched for happiness, meaning, freedom, and peace. Some searched in wealth, others searched in power, others searched in knowledge, relationships, religion, or success. Yet again and again, the same mystery appears. Even after obtaining what they thought they wanted, many people continue to feel that something essential is missing. A quiet emptiness, a subtle longing, a sense that there must be more to life than survival, achievement, and repetition. Perhaps you have felt it too. Perhaps that feeling is the reason this audiobook found its way into your life. So you are not alone. Millions of people move through modern life carrying invisible questions. They wake up exhausted. They feel overwhelmed by endless responsibilities. They compare themselves to others. They worry about money. They worry about the future. They worry about whether they are doing enough, becoming enough, achieving enough. Yet beneath all those worries lies a deeper concern that is rarely spoken aloud. What if I spend my entire life chasing the wrong things? It is a difficult question, but it may also be one of the most important questions a person can ask. Because every great transformation begins with an honest question. And every honest question opens a door. This audiobook follows the story of one such door. A door hidden within mortality. A door hidden within innocence. A door hidden within the collapse of illusion. A door hidden within the courage to see what others refuse to see. Along the way, we will explore why death may not be what it appears to be. Why the self we defend so fiercely may not be our deepest identity. Why innocence contains a wisdom that knowledge alone cannot provide. Why truth often creates resistance before it creates freedom. And why the answers we seek may be much closer than we imagine. But there is something important to understand before we begin. This journey is not about adopting new beliefs. Beliefs are easy. Transformation is not. It is not about collecting spiritual ideas. It is about discovering something directly for yourself. Something beyond concepts. Something beyond borrowed wisdom. Something beyond the stories you have been told about who you are. The chapters ahead form a puzzle. Each one reveals a piece of a larger picture. Each one uncovers a layer hiding something deeper beneath it. And with every layer removed, a new possibility emerges. The possibility that freedom is not something to be achieved. The possibility that peace is not something to be earned. The possibility that what you have been searching for may already be present, waiting patiently beneath the surface of your own awareness. But before that discovery can occur, we must begin where every authentic journey begins. At the place most people avoid. At the place where illusion starts to crack. At the place where the deepest questions first appear. We must begin with death. Because hidden within the mystery of death lies the secret of life itself. Chapter 1. The door hidden inside death. There is a question so ancient, so unsettling, that most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack courage, but because something deep within them trembles whenever the question appears. The question is simple: what is death? At first glance, it seems like a question about endings. Yet what if it is actually a question about beginnings? What if the greatest mystery of life has been standing in plain sight all along, disguised as the thing we fear most? And what if the reason so many people never truly understand life is because they spend their entire lives running from the one doorway that could reveal its deepest secret? This may sound strange, but before we can understand life, we must understand something that modern culture rarely teaches. Life and death are not enemies. They are partners, two movements of the same cosmic rhythm, like the incoming and outgoing tide, like sunrise and sunset, like the inhalation and exhalation of a single breath. One cannot exist without the other. Yet almost everyone wants only half of the experience. We celebrate beginnings. We resist endings. We welcome arrival. We fear departure. And because of this, we remain strangers to a truth that has been waiting for us since the day we first opened our eyes. But there is an even deeper mystery hidden beneath the surface. A mystery few people ever notice. And once you see it, your entire understanding of existence begins to change. Imagine a traveler crossing a vast ocean at night. The sky is covered with clouds. The stars are invisible. The waves rise and fall beneath the ship. The traveler has no map, no compass, no sense of direction. Every movement feels uncertain. Every sound feels threatening. Now imagine another traveler crossing the same ocean, the same waves, the same darkness, the same destination. Yet this traveler carries a lantern. Not a lantern that lights the entire sea, only enough light to illuminate the next few steps. Strangely, that small difference changes everything. The first traveler moves through fear. The second moves through awareness. The ocean remains the same. The experience becomes entirely different. Life operates in much the same way. Most human beings move through existence like the first traveler. They are carried by forces they do not understand, pulled by desires they did not consciously choose, driven by fears they have never fully examined. And nowhere is this more obvious than in our relationship with death. We do not merely fear death. We fear looking directly at it. We fear investigating it. We fear sitting quietly beside the mystery and asking what it might reveal. Instead, we distract ourselves. We fill our schedules. We scroll endlessly. We chase achievements. We pursue possessions. We create noise. Anything to avoid the uncomfortable silence where deeper questions begin to emerge. Yet the silence remains, waiting, patiently, and eventually, every person encounters a moment when distraction no longer works. A hospital room, a funeral, a sudden loss, a diagnosis, a sleepless night, a question that arrives without warning. In those moments, the carefully constructed story of everyday life begins to crack. And through those cracks, something extraordinary becomes visible. Not an answer, not yet, but a clue, a glimpse of a deeper reality. Because death has always been more than an event. It is a mirror, and what it reflects depends entirely upon the quality of our awareness. Most people believe that dying automatically teaches us something, but history suggests otherwise. Every generation has witnessed death. Every culture has experienced loss. Every human being eventually reaches the same threshold. Yet genuine understanding remains rare. Why? Because experience alone does not create wisdom. Awareness creates wisdom. A person can walk through a forest 1,000 times and never truly see it. Another person may walk through it once and discover an entire universe. The difference is not the forest. The difference is consciousness. The same principle applies to death. People die every day, but very few truly encounter death. This distinction may seem small. In reality, it changes everything. There is a hidden mechanism operating beneath the surface of human experience. When fear becomes overwhelming, consciousness contracts. Awareness narrows. Perception fades. The mind seeks escape. Nature has built this protection into us. It is ancient, automatic, powerful. When suffering becomes too intense, the system attempts to shield itself. It moves toward unconsciousness, toward numbness, toward forgetting. This happens not only during physical death. It happens throughout life. When heartbreak arrives, when disappointment strikes, when dreams collapse, when reality refuses to match our expectations, we often drift into a kind of psychological sleep. Not because we are weak, because unconsciousness feels safer than fully experiencing pain. And this is where the story becomes fascinating. Because what happens during our darkest moments may determine whether we remain trapped inside fear or discover something beyond it. Think back to your earliest memory. Not what your parents told you. Not photographs. Not family stories. Your own memory. Notice how quickly the trail disappears. Most people can only travel so far before the landscape fades into fog. The beginning of life remains hidden. Curious, isn't it? You were there, yet you do not remember arriving. You entered existence, but the moment itself remains beyond reach. Why? The answer points toward a much larger mystery. If awareness is absent at one doorway, might it also be absent at another? If unconsciousness surrounds our arrival, could it also surround our departure? And if both doorways are hidden behind the same veil, what exactly is that veil? Most people never ask these questions. Fewer still follow them far enough to discover where they lead. But the trail leads somewhere extraordinary. Because the secret is not found in death itself. The secret is found in awareness. There are moments in life when awareness suddenly sharpens. Time slows. The ordinary becomes luminous. You feel intensely present. Every sound becomes vivid. Every sensation becomes clear. Every breath feels alive. For a brief moment, you are no longer lost in thought. You are simply here, fully awake. Now imagine carrying that quality of awareness into every experience. Into joy, into sorrow, into uncertainty, into change, into the very moment most people fear above all others. Something remarkable begins to happen. Fear loses its grip, not because danger disappears, but because awareness reveals something deeper than fear. A truth hidden beneath appearances. A truth so easily overlooked that most people spend their entire lives searching everywhere except where it resides. And yet it has been present all along. Closer than breath. Closer than thought. Closer than identity itself. But before we can uncover it, we must examine a mistake that nearly every human being makes. A mistake so common that it feels normal. We confuse the vessel with the voyager, the reflection with the source, the costume with the actor, and from that confusion emerges nearly every fear we carry. What happens when that confusion finally dissolves? What remains when everything temporary falls away? The answer changes the meaning of life itself. And that is where the real journey begins. Chapter 2. The Space Beyond the Self. There is a strange misunderstanding at the center of human life. Almost everyone spends years trying to become more successful, more respected, more secure, more certain, more important. Yet very few stop long enough to ask a startling question. What if the very thing we are trying to strengthen is the thing standing between us and freedom? This question appears simple, but hidden inside it is a doorway. And once that doorway begins to open, many of the assumptions upon which we have built our lives start to tremble. In the previous chapter, we discovered that death is not merely an ending. It is a mirror, a revelation, a threshold through which deeper truths become visible. Now another mystery emerges. If fear of death prevents us from seeing life clearly, what prevents us from seeing ourselves clearly? The answer lies closer than most people imagine. It hides inside the image we carry of who we think we are. For years we construct this image piece by piece. We gather achievements, memories, labels, opinions, victories, failures. We build an identity the way an architect constructs a towering skyscraper. Floor upon floor, story upon story, until one day we stand inside the structure and forget that we built it. We begin to believe we are the building itself. And that is where the confusion begins. Because what we have built may not be what we truly are. Imagine standing in front of a vast lake at sunrise. The water is perfectly still. The mountains are reflected upon its surface with breathtaking clarity. The reflection is beautiful, detailed, almost indistinguishable from reality. Yet no matter how accurate the reflection appears, it remains a reflection. Touch the water and it disappears. Disturb the surface and it shatters. Reality remains untouched. Most people spend their entire lives protecting the reflection. Very few search for the mountain. This is one of the deepest tragedies of human existence. We become so fascinated by the image that we forget the source. So devoted to the mask that we lose contact with the face beneath it. So occupied with preserving our importance that we never discover what exists beyond importance. And yet something within us senses the truth. Perhaps you have felt it. A strange emptiness after achieving something you desperately wanted. A quiet dissatisfaction after reaching a long-awaited goal. A subtle feeling that even when life appears successful on the outside, something essential remains undiscovered. Most people respond by searching harder. Working harder, accumulating more, becoming busier, but the feeling persists. Why? Because the hunger is not asking for more possessions. It is asking for more truth. And truth is found in a direction opposite to the one most people travel. This is where the journey becomes truly interesting. For centuries, seekers, philosophers, mystics, and explorers of consciousness have pointed toward a paradox that seems impossible at first. They discovered that the greatest treasures do not arrive when the self becomes larger. They arrive when the self becomes quieter, not destroyed, not rejected, simply moved from the center, like a cloud drifting away from the sun. The cloud does not create the sunlight. It merely blocks it, and when it moves, the light that was always present becomes visible again. The same principle operates within us. Many people imagine that spiritual awakening requires acquiring something new, a secret technique, a hidden power, a special state. But what if awakening is not about gaining anything? What if it is about removing what obscures what has always been there? The answer begins to reveal itself in moments of genuine surrender. Not surrender as defeat, not surrender as weakness, but surrender as openness. The willingness to stop fighting reality. The willingness to stop placing ourselves at the center of every experience. The willingness to admit that life may be larger than our personal story. This openness creates space. And space is more powerful than most people realize. A crowded room cannot receive anything new. A glass already filled to the top cannot accept fresh water. A mind filled entirely with itself cannot hear the whispers of a deeper intelligence. The universe speaks most clearly when the noise begins to fade. Yet this is where many seekers become confused. They attempt to reach the infinite while carrying the entire weight of their identity with them. They seek peace while protecting every attachment. They seek freedom while clinging to every chain. They seek truth while refusing to question the one who is seeking. And because of this, they remain standing at the edge of the door without ever walking through it. But the door is simpler than it appears. Far simpler. Imagine opening the curtains in a dark room. You do not create daylight. You do not manufacture sunlight. You simply remove the obstacle. The light enters by itself. The same is true of inner transformation. The obstacle is not outside you. It never was. The obstacle is the endless effort to maintain a separate self at the center of existence. And when that effort begins to relax, something extraordinary happens. A quiet presence emerges. Not dramatic, not theatrical, not mystical in the way stories often describe. Instead, it feels strangely familiar, as though you have returned to a place you somehow never truly left. A stillness beneath thought, a peace beneath struggle, presence beneath identity. And for a brief moment you realize something astonishing. The peace you were seeking was never absent, only hidden. The light was never gone, only covered. The truth was never distant, only overlooked. But before this realization can fully blossom, another mystery must be confronted. If the self we protect so fiercely is not our deepest reality, then who is the one observing it? Who is the silent witness behind every thought, every emotion, every memory, and every experience? The answer to that question has the power to transform everything we believe about life, death, and the extraordinary journey hidden between them. And that is where the next door begins to open. Chapter 3. The Seed That Must Break. There is a paradox at the heart of every genuine transformation. The thing we most want to protect is often the very thing preventing us from becoming what we are capable of becoming. This truth appears everywhere in nature. A caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while preserving its former shape. Winter cannot become spring while clinging to its frozen stillness. A river cannot reach the ocean if it refuses to leave the mountain. And a seed cannot become a forest while insisting on remaining a seed. Yet human beings spend much of their lives attempting exactly that. We want growth without surrender, freedom without letting go, wisdom without uncertainty, transformation without transformation. We want the harvest while protecting the shell. And because of this, the deeper possibilities hidden within us remain asleep. There is something remarkable about a seed. From the outside, it appears small, insignificant, almost lifeless. If someone had never seen a tree before, they could hold a seed in their hand and never imagine the vastness concealed within it. They would never suspect the branches waiting to stretch toward the sky, the roots waiting to descend into the earth, the countless leaves waiting to dance in the wind, the birds that will someday rest upon its limbs, the shade it will offer, the storms it will survive. All of it exists in potential. All of it is hidden. But none of it can emerge until something crucial happens. The seed must surrender its identity as a seed. And this is where the mystery of human life begins to reveal itself. Most people are fascinated by what they might become. Very few are willing to release who they currently believe themselves to be. They dream of awakening, yet they defend the walls of sleep. They long for peace, yet they nourish the very habits that create conflict. They seek connection with the infinite, yet they cling desperately to the boundaries of the separate self. The contradiction remains invisible because it feels natural. After all, from childhood we are taught to strengthen our identity, to build it, protect it, promote it, advertise it. We are encouraged to become somebody. Rarely are we invited to discover what exists before the idea of somebody. And that forgotten discovery changes everything. A curious thing happens when a person begins to look honestly within. They start noticing that nearly every struggle revolves around the same invisible center. The need to become, the need to acquire, the need to be recognized, the need to secure a future version of themselves. At first, these pursuits seem reasonable, perhaps even necessary. But eventually an uncomfortable question emerges. How much is enough? When will the search finally end? When will the hunger become satisfied? Most people assume the answer lies just beyond the next achievement, the next promotion, the next relationship, the next milestone, the next possession. Yet something strange keeps happening. The destination keeps moving. The horizon keeps retreating. The promise remains just out of reach. And this is where the story becomes truly fascinating. Because the problem may not be that we have failed to acquire enough. The problem may be that we are searching in the wrong direction. Imagine a person standing beside the ocean with a bucket. Hour after hour, they carry water from one side of the shore to another, convinced they are creating the sea. They become exhausted, frustrated, discouraged, never realizing that the ocean was already there. Many people live this way. They spend decades trying to manufacture completeness, trying to create worthiness, trying to earn a value that already exists at the core of their being. And because they never stop striving, they never notice what has been quietly present from the beginning. But there is another obstacle, one far more subtle, one hidden beneath nearly every ambition, every fear, every spiritual search. The obstacle is desire itself, not ordinary preferences, not healthy aspirations, but the restless inner insistence that says, I will be fulfilled when, I will be whole after, I will finally arrive once. This voice shapes countless lives. It drives people across continents, builds companies, creates fortunes, generates achievements, yet it also creates enormous suffering, because fulfillment is always postponed, always deferred, always located somewhere else. Tomorrow becomes more important than today. Arrival becomes more important than the journey. And life slips through our fingers while we are busy preparing to live it. Few people recognize how powerful this mechanism truly is. Desire does not merely seek objects, creates worlds. Entire realities are constructed around the belief that something missing must be acquired. And the moment one desire is satisfied, another appears to take its place. The chain continues, link after link, year after year, lifetime after lifetime, until a person finally pauses long enough to see the pattern itself. That moment of seeing changes everything. Because once the mechanism becomes visible, its spell begins to weaken. For the first time, a person recognizes that the prison was never built from circumstances. It was built from endless psychological grasping. And suddenly a deeper possibility emerges. What if freedom is not found through acquiring more? What if it is discovered through understanding the one who is always seeking? This question opens a new door, a door that many spend their entire lives avoiding, because beyond it waits the collapse of an illusion, the illusion that fulfillment can be purchased, earned, accumulated, negotiated, or traded for. The universe does not operate like a marketplace. Truth cannot be bought. Wisdom cannot be purchased. Inner freedom cannot be acquired through transaction. Anything obtainable through bargaining belongs to the world of exchange. But what is eternal belongs to an entirely different dimension. This is why genuine giving carries such extraordinary power. Most people give with hidden expectations, perhaps not openly, perhaps not consciously. Yet somewhere in the background a quiet calculation remains. Recognition, approval, security, reward, future benefit. The mind keeps records, the heart keeps accounts, and wherever accounting exists, freedom remains distant. True giving begins when the transaction ends, when the act itself becomes complete, when nothing is demanded in return. When generosity is no longer a strategy but an expression of abundance. Only then does giving become transformative. Only then does it stop strengthening the self and begin dissolving it. And this brings us back to the seed. The seed does not negotiate with the soil. It does not demand guarantees from the rain. It does not ask what reward will come from breaking open. It simply surrenders to a process larger than itself. And because it surrenders, life rushes through it. The forest is born from its willingness to disappear. Yet an even greater mystery remains hidden. If desire creates the world we experience, then who is the one experiencing it? Who is the witness observing every longing, every fear, every dream, and every pursuit? And if that witness can be discovered, what happens to the endless search that has consumed so much of human life? The answer is closer than anyone imagines. But before it can be understood, we must follow a remarkable young seeker who dared to ask a question most adults spend their entire lives avoiding. And that question will lead us directly to the threshold of immortality. Chapter 4. The Wisdom Hidden in Innocence. There is a strange assumption that quietly shapes almost every human life. We assume that time automatically creates wisdom. We believe that years become understanding, that age becomes insight, that experience becomes truth. But if this were always true, the oldest people would be the wisest, the wealthiest would be the most fulfilled, and the most accomplished would be the most peaceful. Yet life tells a different story. Many people grow older without growing deeper. Their memories increase, but their understanding does not. Their knowledge expands, but their awareness remains unchanged. Their accomplishments multiply, but their inner confusion survives. The calendar moves forward. The soul remains where it was. This is one of the great mysteries of human existence. Experience alone does not transform us. Experience merely presents opportunities for transformation. Whether transformation actually occurs depends on something far more important. It depends on awareness. A traveler can cross the same desert 100 times and learn nothing. Another traveler may cross it once and discover an entirely new way of seeing life. The desert is not responsible for the difference. Consciousness is, and this truth now begins to reveal itself through an unexpected contrast. A father and a son, an elder and a child, a man celebrated for his knowledge and a boy possessing almost none. At least none that the world would recognize. Yet beneath the surface, something astonishing is taking place. The elder possesses information. The child possesses clarity. The elder carries tradition. The child carries honesty. The elder sees through layers of ambition. The child sees directly. And sometimes direct vision is worth more than accumulated knowledge. This may seem surprising. Most societies worship expertise. They celebrate achievement. They admire status. Yet reality repeatedly demonstrates that knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. Knowledge fills the mind. Wisdom clears it. Knowledge collects answers. Wisdom asks the right questions. Knowledge often strengthens identity. Wisdom quietly dissolves it. And nowhere is this difference more visible than in the eyes of a child. Have you ever noticed how children look at the world? Not the distracted children shaped by endless screens and constant stimulation, but very young children, before the conditioning becomes complete, before comparison takes root, before ambition begins its endless race. They look at ordinary things as though seeing them for the first time, because they are. A falling leaf can capture their attention. A beam of sunlight can feel miraculous. A question can remain alive without requiring an immediate answer. There is freshness in their perception, a kind of openness, a willingness to meet reality without already knowing what it is supposed to be. This innocence contains a secret, not because innocence itself is enlightenment. Far from it. Natural innocence is simply the absence of corruption. It is a beginning, not a destination. A newborn arrives untouched by the world's complexities. The mind is open. The heart is soft. The eyes are clear. But this condition cannot remain unchanged. Life will test it. Society will shape it. Fear will challenge it. Ambition will tempt it. Slowly, layers begin to accumulate. Labels, expectations, beliefs, conditioning. The fresh mirror becomes crowded with reflections. And eventually most people forget that clarity ever existed. This is why childhood alone is not wisdom. It is only potential wisdom, a seed, nothing more. The truly remarkable journey is not to remain a child. It is to travel through life and somehow recover the child's vision without losing adult awareness. This is where genuine maturity begins. Not when innocence disappears, but when innocence returns consciously. The difference is enormous. The child's innocence is unconscious. The sage's innocence is earned. One is given by nature. The other is discovered through understanding. One exists before experience. The other exists after experience has been fully digested. Imagine two clear lakes. One has never been disturbed. The other has endured storms, floods, droughts, and seasons of turmoil. If both become equally still, which stillness carries greater depth? The second, because its peace has survived chaos. Its clarity has survived confusion. The stillness has been tested. This is the innocence sought by the great seekers throughout history. Not ignorance, not naivety, not childishness, a deeper innocence. An innocence that has looked directly at greed and chosen generosity, faced fear and chosen trust, encountered suffering and remained open. This innocence cannot be taught. It must be discovered. And this is precisely where many people lose their way. Society trains individuals to become successful before it teaches them how to remain whole. Children enter the world with a natural sense of wonder. Then begins the long process of replacing wonder with certainty. Questions become answers. Curiosity becomes conformity. Presence becomes performance. Soon the child learns what is expected. How to fit in. How to compete. How to compare. How to succeed. And gradually something essential becomes buried beneath these lessons. The tragedy is not that education teaches skills. Skills are valuable. The tragedy is that awareness is often forgotten while information is accumulated. The mind becomes crowded. The heart becomes cautious. Life becomes strategic. The original freshness begins to fade. Yet somewhere beneath all the layers it survives. Waiting, watching, patiently, like a spring hidden beneath rock. Like a star concealed by clouds. Like music waiting behind noise. The original clarity never completely disappears. It simply becomes difficult to hear. And every authentic spiritual journey is, in part, an attempt to hear it again. Not by becoming younger. Not by escaping responsibility. Not by rejecting knowledge. But by discovering a deeper intelligence that exists beyond accumulated conditioning. An intelligence that sees directly. An intelligence that cannot be manipulated by vanity or fear. An intelligence that remains available even after decades of confusion. This intelligence is beginning to awaken within the young seeker at the center of our story. While others are impressed by appearances, he notices something hidden. While others celebrate a grand act of generosity, he senses a contradiction beneath it. While others see sacrifice, he sees ambition disguised as sacrifice. And this perception emerges not from education, not from scholarship, not from spiritual training, but from something far rarer, honesty. The kind of honesty that has not yet learned how to deceive itself. The kind of honesty capable of seeing what adults often spend years avoiding. And that single quality is about to lead him toward a question so powerful that it will shake the foundations of everything he has been taught. A question that most people never dare to ask. A question that will force a confrontation between appearance and reality. And once that question is spoken, the journey toward the deepest mystery of existence can no longer be avoided. Chapter 5. The Return of the Child. There is something extraordinary about a child. Not because a child knows more. A child knows less. Not because a child is stronger. A child is fragile. Not because a child understands life. A child has barely begun the journey. And yet there is something present in the child that many adults spend their entire lives trying to recover. A freshness. A transparency, a way of seeing that has not yet been buried beneath layers of ambition, fear, comparison, and conditioning. This is why some of the greatest wisdom traditions throughout history have pointed toward the heart of a child. Not because childhood itself is enlightenment, but because childhood contains a clue, a forgotten map, a memory of a state we once possessed before the world taught us who we were supposed to become. The tragedy is not that we lose our innocence. The tragedy is that we often lose it without realizing what has been lost. We trade it away piece by piece. A little wonder in exchange for approval. A little curiosity in exchange for certainty. A little authenticity in exchange for acceptance. A little freedom in exchange for success. The exchange seems reasonable at first. The rewards appear attractive. Society applauds us. People call it maturity, progress, achievement, growth. Yet something subtle disappears along the way. Something difficult to define. A quality of presence. A natural intimacy with life. A spontaneous connection to reality. And many people do not notice its absence until decades later. Sometimes not until the very end. This is where the story becomes deeply important, because the child and the adult often live in entirely different worlds. Not physically, psychologically. A child can spend an hour watching sunlight dance across a wall. An adult may spend the same hour worrying about a meeting next week. A child can become fascinated by the movement of clouds. An adult may walk beneath the same sky without ever looking up. A child experiences life directly. An adult often experiences life through interpretation. The child sees. The adult thinks about what is seen. The difference appears small. In reality, it creates two completely different realities. Imagine two people standing beside a river. One is listening to the water, feeling the breeze, watching the reflections shimmer on the surface. The other is standing beside the same river while mentally replaying yesterday's argument and worrying about tomorrow's problems. Both are physically present. Only one is actually there. This is what happens to many human beings. They lose contact with the living moment. Gradually, life becomes less about experiencing reality and more about managing psychological stories. The mind becomes crowded. The heart becomes guarded. The simple miracle of existence becomes hidden behind endless mental noise. Yet children have not fully entered that prison. Not yet. This is why they often notice contradictions adults completely miss. Their perception remains direct. Their logic remains uncomplicated. Their questions cut through illusions. And sometimes a single innocent observation can expose years of unconscious behavior. Adults often underestimate this power. They assume innocence means ignorance. But innocence and ignorance are not the same thing. Ignorance cannot see. Innocence often sees too clearly. This is why children sometimes ask questions that leave entire rooms silent. Questions nobody wants to answer. Questions that reveal uncomfortable truths. Questions that expose the distance between what people say and what they actually do. A child sees actions. Adults often see explanations. A child notices reality. Adults notice narratives. And reality always speaks more honestly than narratives. This is why wisdom frequently arrives disguised as simplicity. The deepest truths often appear so obvious that sophisticated minds overlook them. The complicated mind searches for complicated answers. Life quietly waits inside the simple ones. But there is an important distinction we must understand. The innocence of a child is beautiful, yet it is incomplete. It has not been tested. It has not walked through disappointment. It has not faced betrayal. It has not encountered the storms that eventually arrive in every human life. Natural innocence is a beginning, not the destination. The greater miracle happens when innocence returns after experience. When a person walks through ambition without becoming consumed by it, moves through suffering without becoming bitter, encounters success without becoming arrogant, faces failure without becoming hardened, and somehow emerges with an open heart. This is rare, very rare, because life constantly invites us to become cynical, to become suspicious, to become guarded, to become closed. The world teaches us to protect ourselves, and often that protection slowly becomes a prison. Wall after wall is built, until eventually we are safe from pain. But we are also separated from wonder, safe from disappointment, but separated from love, safe from uncertainty, but separated from discovery. And then one day we wake up and realize we have protected ourselves from life itself. This realization becomes the beginning of a different journey. A journey not toward becoming more, but toward recovering what was lost. Not by returning to childhood. That is impossible. Time only moves forward. But by rediscovering the qualities that made childhood beautiful in the first place. Curiosity, presence, trust, wonder, openness, authenticity. These qualities can return, not as unconscious innocence, but as conscious innocence. An innocence strengthened by understanding, deepened by experience, refined by awareness. This is the innocence possessed by the great sages, the great mystics, the great awakened beings. They are not childish. They are childlike. There is a profound difference. The childish person has not yet learned. The childlike person has learned and then transcended. The childish person lacks experience. The childlike person has transformed experience into wisdom. The childish person remains unconscious. The childlike person has become conscious and returned to simplicity. This is why truly awakened individuals often appear surprisingly ordinary. There is a lightness about them, a freshness, a naturalness, an absence of psychological heaviness. They no longer carry the burden of pretending to be someone. They have stopped defending an image, stopped performing an identity, stopped fighting reality. And because of this, life flows through them with extraordinary ease. The universe can be seen clearly through a mind that no longer distorts it, like a clean window through which sunlight passes unobstructed. But another mystery now begins to emerge. If innocence can be lost and later rediscovered, then what exactly is it that corrupts the human heart in the first place? What creates the distance between the child we once were and the person we eventually become? And why does a young seeker named Nachiketa see something that the adults around him completely miss? The answer lies hidden inside one of the oldest forces operating within the human mind. A force so common that most people never question it. A force capable of disguising itself even as virtue, even as generosity, even as religion itself. And understanding that force is the next essential step in our journey. Chapter 6. The Intelligence of the Innocent Heart. There are moments in life when a simple observation exposes an enormous illusion. Not because the observation is complicated. Quite the opposite. Because it is so obvious that sophisticated minds overlook it. This is one of the strangest tendencies of human beings. The more complex our thinking becomes, the easier it is to miss what stands directly before us. A child notices. An adult explains. A child sees. An adult interprets. A child asks. An adult rationalizes. And somewhere in that process, reality often disappears beneath layers of cleverness. This is precisely the moment our young seeker finds himself confronting. He watches an act celebrated by everyone around him. An act dressed in the language of generosity. An act praised as virtue. An act admired as sacrifice. Yet something feels wrong. Not because he possesses advanced knowledge. Not because he has mastered philosophy. Not because he understands sacred teachings. In fact, he understands very little. And perhaps that is exactly why he sees so clearly. His vision has not yet been clouded by justification. He has not learned how to disguise self-interest as nobility. He has not learned how to decorate ambition with beautiful words. He has not learned the sophisticated art of deceiving himself. The innocent heart often notices what the educated mind explains away. This is where the story becomes deeply relevant to our own lives. Because most deception is not directed toward other people. Most deception is directed toward ourselves. We convince ourselves that we are acting from love when we are seeking approval. We convince ourselves that we are pursuing purpose when we are pursuing status. We convince ourselves that we are being generous when we are making a transaction. The mind is remarkably creative when protecting its desires. It can transform almost any motive into something that appears noble. And over time, we begin believing our own stories. Imagine a traveler carrying heavy luggage across a continent. At first, the burden feels obvious. But after years of carrying it, the weight becomes familiar. So familiar that the traveler forgets it exists. Only when the luggage is finally set down does the traveler realize how exhausted he has been. Human desire operates in much the same way. We carry hidden motives for so long that they begin to feel natural, normal, invisible, yet they shape nearly every decision we make. And because they remain unseen, they remain powerful. This is why true transformation begins with honesty. Not honesty toward the world, honesty toward oneself. The courage to look directly at one's motives without decoration, without excuses, without self-congratulation, without defense. Few things are more difficult, and few things are more liberating. Because the moment we stop pretending, we begin to see. The moment we see, we begin to awaken. And the moment we awaken, the possibility of genuine change appears. But there is another layer hidden beneath this lesson, a deeper mystery, one that explains why innocence possesses such extraordinary power. Most people assume innocence means weakness. Life teaches the opposite. Innocence is not weakness. It is clarity before corruption. It is perception before distortion. It is the ability to encounter reality without immediately manipulating it. The innocent person may not possess many answers, but they possess something far more valuable. They possess openness. And openness is the doorway through which truth enters. A closed mind can collect information. An open mind can discover wisdom. The difference changes everything. This is why many of the greatest insights in human history emerged not from certainty but from wonder. Not from conclusion but from curiosity. Not from knowing but from not knowing. The mind that already knows cannot learn. The mind willing to remain amazed remains forever young. This may explain a mystery that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. Why do some people become more rigid as they age while others become more expansive? Why do some accumulate knowledge and lose wonder, while others accumulate wisdom and deepen wonder? The answer lies in the relationship between intelligence and humility. Knowledge often says, "I understand." Wisdom says, "There is still more to discover." Knowledge seeks control. Wisdom remains available to mystery. Knowledge wants certainty. Wisdom is comfortable standing beside the unknown. And it is beside the unknown that the greatest discoveries occur. This is where our young seeker possesses an unexpected advantage. He has not yet become imprisoned by certainty. He has not yet learned to worship cleverness. He has not yet replaced direct seeing with elaborate explanations. His innocence allows him to notice something everyone else ignores: contradiction, a fracture between appearance and reality. And that fracture becomes a doorway, because every authentic spiritual journey begins at precisely this point. Not with answers, with discomfort, not with certainty, with questioning, not with agreement, with the courage to notice what others refuse to see. This courage is rarer than most people realize. The world rewards conformity. It rewards agreement. It rewards fitting into established patterns. Questioning those patterns can feel dangerous, especially when those patterns are supported by authority, tradition, or social approval. Yet truth has never depended upon popularity. Reality does not become true because many people believe it, nor does it become false because few people understand it. A child looking at the stars may know nothing of astronomy. Yet the stars remain exactly what they are. Truth exists independently of opinion, and this realization leads us toward an even deeper insight. There are two very different ways of approaching existence. One approach seeks proof for everything. The other seeks experience. One attempts to reduce reality into conclusions. The other remains available to discovery. The first asks, can this be demonstrated? The second asks, can this be lived? The first is concerned with certainty. The second is concerned with truth. And these are not always the same thing. Some of the most important realities in life cannot be proven in the way we prove mathematical equations. Love cannot be measured with a ruler. Beauty cannot be weighed on a scale. Meaning cannot be placed beneath a microscope. Yet their reality remains undeniable. The most profound dimensions of existence reveal themselves through participation, not argument. Through experience, not theory. Through openness, not conquest. This is why genuine faith has nothing to do with blind belief. Faith is not the insistence that one possesses all the answers. Faith is the willingness to remain open to a reality larger than one's current understanding. It is the courage to walk into mystery without demanding guarantees. The courage to explore without already knowing the destination. The courage to trust that existence may contain depths not yet visible. And this kind of faith is born not from cleverness. It is born from innocence. Not childish innocence, conscious innocence. A quality of being that remains receptive even after encountering uncertainty. Even after disappointment. Even after doubt. This innocence is becoming stronger within the young seeker. And soon it will compel him to ask a question so direct, so unsettling, and so impossible to ignore that it will change the course of his entire destiny. A question that most adults would never dare ask. A question capable of exposing the hidden motives behind an entire way of living. And once that question is spoken, nothing will remain the same. Chapter 7. The Truth That Awakens Anger. There is a remarkable difference between belief and knowing. Belief is often borrowed. Knowing is lived. Belief can be taught. Knowing must be discovered. Belief lives in the mind. Knowing settles into the depths of the heart. This distinction is subtle, yet it changes everything. Throughout history, countless people have argued about the existence of the universe's deeper intelligence. Philosophers have debated it. Scholars have analyzed it. Skeptics have challenged it. Defenders have protected it. And still the mystery remains. Why? Because the deepest realities cannot be reached through argument alone. A person may spend years discussing the taste of water, but discussion will never quench thirst. Eventually, the glass must be lifted. The water must be tasted. The experience itself becomes the answer. The same is true of the deepest dimensions of existence. One person may spend a lifetime collecting arguments. Another may spend a lifetime collecting experiences. The first gathers conclusions. The second gathers understanding. And understanding possesses a quality that arguments never achieve. Transforms the one who possesses it. This is why some people remain peaceful even when their beliefs are challenged. Their certainty does not come from theory. It comes from direct encounter. A mountain climber does not need to argue that the mountain exists. A sailor does not need to debate the reality of the ocean. They have stood within the experience itself. Something similar happens when a human being touches the deeper dimensions of consciousness. The need to convince others begins to fade. The need to win arguments begins to disappear. Truth becomes less like a weapon and more like a light. It illuminates. It does not attack. Yet this brings us to an even more fascinating mystery. If truth is so powerful, why do people resist it? Why do human beings often defend illusions long after they have stopped serving them? The answer reveals one of the deepest secrets of human psychology. Because truth rarely threatens what is false. Truth threatens what is invested in the false. An illusion can survive for years, sometimes for decades, sometimes for entire lifetimes, not because it is convincing, but because it is comfortable. People become attached to the stories they tell themselves, attached to their identities, attached to their explanations, attached to the carefully constructed image they have built. And whenever reality threatens that image, resistance appears. Not because the image is true, because it has become familiar. Imagine a traveler who has lived for years inside a dimly lit room. One day a window is opened. Sunlight floods the space. At first, the light feels beautiful. But if the room has been dark long enough, the light may also feel uncomfortable. The eyes need time to adjust. The same thing happens with truth. We imagine that we want it, and part of us genuinely does. Yet another part wants comfort, predictability, security, the known. This internal conflict shapes much of human behavior. People say they want transformation, yet transformation requires the death of something old. People say they want freedom, yet freedom often demands the release of familiar chains. People say they want truth, yet truth asks them to surrender cherished illusions. And that surrender is rarely easy. This is where the young seeker's journey becomes so extraordinary. He is not merely observing an external contradiction. He is confronting a human tendency that exists in every generation. The tendency to disguise self-interest as virtue. The tendency to decorate selfishness with beautiful language. The tendency to call something sacred while secretly serving the ego. Most people never notice these tendencies within themselves. Not because they are dishonest, because self-deception is subtle. The mind possesses an extraordinary ability to protect its own illusions, creates explanations, justifications, stories, excuses, anything necessary to preserve the image it wants to maintain. And this is why genuine honesty is one of the rarest qualities in the world. Honesty does not simply mean telling the truth to others. Honesty means being willing to see the truth about oneself, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. This is where many spiritual journeys quietly end before they begin, because it is easier to study wisdom than to practice it, easier to discuss awakening than to awaken, easier to speak about truth than to allow truth to transform us. Transformation requires vulnerability. It requires the willingness to see what we would rather avoid. And the ego resists this with tremendous determination. But something fascinating happens whenever a hidden truth is exposed. The reaction is rarely neutral. People do not become angry when someone tells an obvious lie. A lie can often be dismissed, ignored, forgotten. But a truth that strikes close to home creates an entirely different response. It disturbs. It unsettles. It awakens something sleeping beneath the surface. Think back to moments when criticism affected you deeply. Was it because every criticism was accurate? Of course not. Many criticisms pass by without leaving a trace. Yet occasionally a single comment lingers. A single observation remains. A single sentence continues echoing long after it was spoken. Why? Because somewhere within it there was a fragment of truth. Perhaps not the entire truth, but enough truth to reach something hidden. Enough truth to touch a place we would rather leave untouched. And whenever truth touches an unhealed place, discomfort arises. Sometimes that discomfort becomes reflection. Sometimes it becomes transformation. But often it becomes anger, not because truth is cruel, because truth is revealing. It illuminates what we have worked hard to keep in shadow. This explains one of the oldest patterns in human history. Messengers of truth are rarely welcomed at first. Innovators are resisted. Visionaries are questioned. Awakened individuals are misunderstood, not because they are wrong, but because they force others to see what they would rather avoid. The young seeker has unknowingly stepped into this territory. His observation is simple, almost innocent, yet it lands with enormous force. because it does not merely question an action. It exposes a contradiction, and contradictions are difficult to tolerate, especially when they involve our self-image, especially when they challenge the story we tell ourselves about who we are. This is why the father's reaction becomes so important. What appears to be ordinary anger is actually something much deeper, a collision between appearance and reality, a collision between ego and truth, a collision between the person he believes himself to be and the reality being reflected back to him. And that collision is about to set into motion one of the most profound conversations ever recorded. A conversation that begins with a child's question but will ultimately uncover the mystery of death itself. A conversation that will lead beyond philosophy, beyond belief, beyond ritual, and beyond tradition, towards something direct, something eternal, something hidden behind every fear and every longing. The door is opening. The young seeker does not yet realize where it leads. Neither does his father. But the question has already been asked. The arrow has already left the bow. And once truth begins its journey, there is no returning to ignorance. The next step will carry us to the threshold where mortality and immortality meet. And there, the greatest secret of human existence waits to be revealed. Epilogue. The child who returned home. Every great journey appears to lead us somewhere, across mountains, across oceans, across years, across countless experiences. But the deepest journeys reveal something unexpected. They do not take us somewhere new. They bring us back to what was always here, back to what was forgotten, back to what existed before fear, ambition, comparison, and struggle began shaping our lives. Throughout this journey, we explored death, not merely as the ending of a body, but as a doorway hidden within every moment of surrender, a doorway hidden within every ending, a doorway hidden within every illusion that falls apart. We explored the self, the identity we spend so many years constructing, the image we defend, the story we tell ourselves, the mask we polish for the world. And we discovered something remarkable. The more tightly we cling to these things, the farther we drift from the peace we seek. The freedom we long for does not appear when the self becomes stronger. It appears when the self becomes transparent, when it no longer stands between us and reality. We explored innocence, not the innocence of ignorance, not the innocence of naivety, but a deeper innocence, an innocence that survives experience, an innocence that walks through suffering and remains open, an innocence that encounters disappointment without becoming bitter, an innocence that touches success without becoming arrogant, an innocence that remembers wonder. This innocence is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. The world teaches us to become hard. Life invites us to become clear. The world teaches us to become important. Truth invites us to become authentic. The world teaches us to accumulate. Wisdom invites us to let go. And perhaps that is the greatest discovery hidden within these pages. The treasure was never somewhere else. It was never waiting at the end of achievement, never hidden inside approval, never buried beneath wealth, status, or recognition. The treasure was the awareness searching for the treasure. The seeker was what was being sought. The answer was hidden within the question. The destination was concealed within every step of the journey. This is why the wise throughout history have spoken of awakening rather than acquiring. Nothing essential can be added to what you truly are. Only the unnecessary can be removed. The clouds can part. The sunlight was already there. The mirror can be cleaned. The reflection was always waiting. The seed can break open. The tree was already hidden within it. And perhaps that is what the story of the young seeker was trying to teach us all along. Not that we must become something extraordinary, but that we must stop forgetting what we already are. A conscious presence. A witness behind every thought. A a silent awareness untouched by success or failure, untouched by birth, untouched by death. The body changes, the mind changes, circumstances change, entire worlds rise and fall, yet something remains, something watches, something knows, something has been present through every chapter of your life. And if you listen carefully enough, you may begin to recognize it. Not as an idea, not as a belief, as a living reality. One day, each of us will stand before the mystery that humanity has contemplated since the beginning of time. The mystery called death. Most people approach that moment carrying unfinished fears, unanswered questions, unexamined lives. But there is another possibility. To arrive there with the simplicity of a child, with the clarity of an open sky, with nothing to defend, nothing to prove, nothing to possess, only awareness, only presence, only trust. Then death ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a doorway into the vastness that was always surrounding us, a doorway into the silence beneath every sound, a doorway into the mystery from which all life emerges and to which all life returns. And perhaps, when that moment finally comes, we will discover that the journey was never about escaping life. It was about learning how to see, learning how to awaken, learning how to remember. The child arrived in this world empty-handed. The wise one leaves the same way. Yet everything has changed, because the child knew innocence unconsciously. The wise one knows it consciously. The child entered life searching. The wise one leaves life understanding. The child asked questions. The wise one became the answer. And so the journey ends where it began. In simplicity, in wonder, in awareness, in the quiet recognition that what we were seeking has been patiently waiting within us all along. The door was never somewhere else. The light was never somewhere else. Home was never somewhere else. It was always here. And now perhaps you can see it.